This conference will now be recorded.
Yeah, actually, yes.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 for tonight's meeting is the consent agenda item. You'll see there are 3 items. Approving the minutes of the last regular council meeting, approving minutes for the special meeting, and a statement of both case.
Mayor, staff has a recommendation for amendment on the special council meeting minutes. That the vote was, the mayor voted to affirm as a tiebreaker, not reflected in the minutes. And I will move it was absent from the meeting.
So unless there are any questions specifically, I think that these would include those changes as suggested.
I have a question about the bills. I had a constituent call and asked, what is Rex Bank fuel charge? I think, is that a credit card for?
It's the
gas?
fleet card.
Okay,
Yes.
I saw it. That's on me. She's listening.
Make a motion to accept consent agenda items with additional comments.
We have a motion from Councilman Shriver and a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Malat.
Yes.
Schreiber.
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Mullen.
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Item 2 is request or comments from the public. If you have any public want to share this evening, or neighbors want to share this evening, remember you'll have 3 minutes. Start by saying your name and address when you have 30 seconds left. I'll give you a quick signal to wrap it up, and we'll just wait for anyone if they'd like to share.
Mary Wilson, 1788. I'm back. I'm known as a sidewalk lady in the community now. And people have been coming to me. And I did not even tell you when I was coming. I just felt a responsibility to come and report what I'm hearing. First and foremost, thank you for the sidewalk. Everybody is excited. We're walking on portions of it. It's looking great. We're enjoying it. And I see more people than ever out walking. I think I've changed my time, so I'm assuming that maybe they increased. So the concerns that I've heard is the upper crossing where the cul-de-sac comes out near the top of the hill. They're concerned about the kids. I told them that I was sure that the engineers had that figured out. There's going to be lights and crossing guards for school. But they're still concerned about summer because we don't have a park where the kids tend to go over there in the summer. When there maybe won't be lights and crossing guards. Fearing that somebody might dart out from there quickly across the street. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. I just wanted you to know that that's what people are concerned about. The second thing that I have heard, and this one I've heard many, many times. I'm not gonna go get signatures, I'm hoping you'll take my word for it. They're saying, what do you mean they're not connecting that cul-de-sac cut through with the sidewalk down below? There's, I think, I said that off, it's going to be 150, 160 feet. And they're thinking they should be able to come out without crossing the road, going down and have the block and crossing the road back to walk the lake in, wanting that sidewalk connected from the cul-de-sac cut through along the west side of 104th Street to the sidewalk. And I thought I would come tonight while the workers are still there. I don't know if there's anything you can do, if you can add to it, if you can't add to it. But I thought certainly it'd be cheaper to do it while the workers are there. I think it's pretty much already breaking. We just need adding the forms, which I know is expensive. So I don't know if there's anything you can do about it, but I have had any number of people say, what do you mean you're not putting that sidewalk in? Because they think it seems unfinished or not complete or, you know, they're really thinking it should be the entire length of 104th Street up to that cul-de-sac. So I'm this here as a sidewalk lady, reporting what I'm hearing on the street. And I thank you again for the sidewalk. It's wonderful. We do appreciate what we have. We just ask that if possible, that additional 150 feet could be added. So thank you.
Anyone else for this evening? Moving on to item number 3, is governing body to consider the planning commission's recommendation to approve the final plan for Fastenal 9711, 9911 Woodend Road.
Mayor, thank you. Yeah, that's it. I'll turn this over to the Assistant City Manager, Edward.
Everybody, good evening. This is a request that you seen previously when you approved the pool plan. That was sent back to the planning commission, and they recently heard conditions related to the preliminary plan and turned it into a final plan. So last week, the planning commission saw the final plan, approved it, and recommended to the governing body that they consider adoption of the final plan. Just in kind of a nutshell, Fastenal, the applicant wishes to expand some additional, and have some additional warehouse space, 47,000 square feet. And it's next to a previous expansion. And they have met all the conditions that were placed on them by both the governing body and the planning commission. And so therefore, we would recommend approval as well. I would note, behind me in the audience is Matthew from Fastenal, who I'm sure you're familiar with. So if you have any specific questions, because I've just inherited this project, so Matthew would certainly be the expert.
Well, I make a motion to approve the final plan.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Moore, a second from Councilman Bishop. Will please call the.
Malat,
Yes.
Shriver,
Yes.
Adcox,
Yes.
Mullen,
Yes.
Bishop.
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes. And just wanted to take a minute to thank Fastenal. They've been a great community partner with us in Edwardsville, from the 5K race, grant funding, just in investing in this community. It's very appreciated. So thank you for being here and being Fastenal.
Well, thank you very much.
Item 4, consider authorizing the city manager to enter into a contract with professional engineering consultants, PATEC, for land use and zoning services.
Mayor, thank you, Mayor, Council. What you have before you is item number 4, the background. As you're aware, we had a city planner that was on staff for a few years. And prior to that, for the longest time, we had a contracted planner. And we studied both structures and the level of activity, if you will. And what we determined is maybe a move towards a contract planner again. Given our volume, it's very sporadic. We didn't have since July. I sat in this chair last July. There's been several canceled meetings and that sort of thing. We're at 40% meeting ratio. Sometimes it was a matter of just, did we have a quorum or did we have any material before them, that sort of thing. And not that the planner wasn't doing some activities during that time. It just, I think economically, it makes some sense to move in this direction. It's a very niche, if you will, kind of profession in the contract world. So we reached out to a variety of partners, including Dave Noppick, who you recognize the name. That's because he was our city planner for a number of years as a contractor. And he made some recommendations on how we might go about searching for that. So he did recommend reaching out to the contractor with Eudora, which happens to be PEC, and Mr. Noppick was the planner there before he went to be moved on from there. So he had a relationship with bringing him on at Eudora, and so we recommended talking with them. BHC did have someone on staff that recently retired, and that was a possibility. They may want to continue some of those relationships as well. And JEO Consulting Group, which also provides this service as well. They're in a transition of staff, so it will be difficult for them to come on very soon. However, all that being said, we did speak with PEC, and as I note here, is that Kyle Cody is their planner, if you will. It's kind of the lead, and he would be assigned to our account should we proceed this way. He is from Edwardsville, Kansas, BHS graduate, and very educated, he's experienced. He worked for Unified Government, Wichita Central County, Douglas County, and Lawrence combined, and now he's in the private sector. And again, he's the lead in Eudora. Our system would, the processes, things would be very similar to the level of activity and the way we set this whole thing up. That was one of the selling points. A good person would fit our system and our people, if you will, has an investment in the community already. This folks on the house right here in town. So I thought that was really good, just a kind of a starting point for us. Again, I think very experienced. The money, with benefits and pay, it was about $5,700 a month for us. We have preliminary agreed until we can move a little farther with your approval to $3,600 a month. It would be billed against the time that they would actually be performing the services. And the contract would be structured in a way that I will have some authority to let them have a little bit of overage depending on the volume of work and maybe the complexity of the task. And we don't think that's going to happen very often, but their experience says this is a good way to structure it. And I think that is a good thing, that at least we would be able to, have it in writing before we say yes, and that sort of thing, so we structure that. So I think we have a really positive service approach with this, and I recommend that you allow me to enter into a contract with PBC.
Probably an easy question for you, and that's, is there rollover hours, or say you said some months there's just really not much at all for planning to do, and then the next month might be busy. Are we going to charge extra for the next month if the month before was really light workload?
It's not to exceed $3,600, but we'll be billed by the hour. Yes, so work done is work billed. So it could be $1,000, no, it could be that $3,600 or a little more. You said this month is a little more expensive, that sort of thing. There's no really roll up. They're gonna build us, as I understand it, $3,600 a month if they work that much or less. And with my approval, they can go a little bit over that if it's a complex project or or the volume changes. As you might know, sometimes we just get hit with, all these permits and people want to build stuff. So this gives us flexibility.
So it may be less on those lighter months, you can see.
Correct.
And the other question that I had was, is Kyle going to be attending the planning commission?
Yes, which is part of our agreement, design review, and anything that requires, say for a council meeting, for example, they'll be leading that. How it will be structured is Mr. Gerber will take the lead along with our city clerk, who is an experienced building permitting clerk as well. They'll take the lead of screening some of this stuff, and so that we can kind of control the cost, so that a very simple email that we may be able to answer doesn't go against us to the planner, wherever we can comfortably do that. So I think that's the plan.
What's the hourly rate?
I think it's going to be $150 an hour. So they're contributing about 26 hours in a 30-day time frame.
You also going to be doing like land reviews for residential and commercial?
I would presume we will screen it on our end and then assign it out to them. So I would presume they're going to be doing the high-level stuff for sure.
What about METS? Are they going to be doing residential?
No, they do the inspections.
Inspection, right.
Yeah.
I know that we have to send stuff to them for planning.
Yeah, no, that's a different bill. So, yeah, then we have a separate, a budgeted number for them annually. It's anywhere from 11,000 to 18,000 for inspection service. They do have a note on that very quickly. Is the city of Bonner Springs has reached out to maybe that we combine that service, maybe a good partnership as you transition to the question about building inspections. And so we have reached out, and I'm going to be working with that to see if they use the same contractors we do. They want to bring somebody in-house, it may be an opportunity for us to, work with our next door neighbor and have somebody somewhat right local. So,
Well, I'll make the motion that we authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with professional engineering consultant PA for the land use planning and zoning service.
The motion from Councilman Bishop is second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Malat.
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
Adcox.
Yes.
Mullen.
Yes.
Bishop.
Okay, item number 5, here, staff presentation on the fiscal year 25.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn this over to City Manager.
Everybody, good evening again. What we have tonight is a continued discussion of our general funds. Originally in our schedule, we talked about maybe moving on to other funds this evening, but we felt like maybe it was appropriate to do a discussion on the general fund and go through some scenarios with you. And then at your first meeting in August, we will talk about other funds, special highways, special sales types, so what I have to present is mostly review. In fact, I think it's going to be all review. But this will be like the 5th or 6th time you've heard it, so I'm sorry to bore you, but they say sometimes it takes 7 times for something to sink in for all of us. So I will actually get it this time. After I finish my presentation, then I will turn it over to the city manager, and I know he wants to talk through some scenarios. As always, we want to start with our calendar. We're at July 22nd. We can see where we've been. As we move into August, we talked about other funds discussion. At the end of August, I think will be our final actual discussion. And then we have targeted September 9th for the revenue neutral public hearing and target for the 2025 budget adoption. So September seems like a long time away, but to look at it, it's really only 3 more meetings. So it's coming up. Just as a reminder, our 2025 budget goals, as we heard from you, tax relief, a balanced budget, again, and emphasize this is not we will present you a budget where expenditures do not exceed revenues, and in that vein, we also want to try to improve the general fund balance to the extent we can. Maintain and enhance city services, tangible projects that we can see like sidewalks, those types of things, parks improvement, park roofs, park shelter houses, those sorts of things. And we prioritize parks and public work projects, and then promote employee compensation as best we can. I won't go through this, but just thought it would be helpful to include this slide on how city property tax is calculated, and what Edwardsville pays about $1,500 to the city. The tax bill is certainly higher than that, but only about 25% of that actually goes to the city, as we discussed. Just as a reminder, the valuation for all of Edwardsville in 2024, for fiscal year 2024, was about $100 million. The estimate for 2025 for next year is $113 million. That is very easy math, 15% change, so good. In one way, also not great in some ways, as you're paying taxes. But again, just to break it down for you, a mill is about $113,000, and then after that is $56,000. As a reminder, the final mill levy for 2024 was 40.940. The revenue neutral rate was 36.186. The difference of 4.7 mils and about $500,000. Again, this is all just a reminder. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the city manager. Let him walk through this presentation.
Council, this may be a little familiar, hopefully it's showing well on your screen. Mr. Bishop mentioned the ABC, kind of the options that we gave you last year. This is kind of the layout that I used, kind of blocking it up, talking about, just looking at the general fund, mill calculations, what we think the revenue will be total, and then how that compares against the expenditures, and then what this represents in the 2025 budget as we have presented. So if you start again, you heard Mr. Gerber mention the assessed value, $113 million. That breaks down to $113,000 plus for 1 mil. We have 10.418883, in debt mills that's specifically attributed to pay for our debt. That hasn't changed. It changed a few years ago, went from 11 to 10. It's been around that 10 to 11 mark for quite a long time. And so if you look at it, This starts with that 1 mil decrease for the resolution. Council prioritized kind of going out in front and saying, we do want to see some tax burden relief, so we're starting from there. And so if you look at, I want to draw your attention to the start fund balance in 2025. If the math is the math, and we spent as we intended to spend, and we receive the revenue that we projected to receive, we will end up with a fund balance of that, is that 699, just short of 700,000. Okay? All things are equal. So we are being conservative, and that's the number we're putting in there. So expected revenue from all sources. So 38% of all revenue collected comes from property tax, only 38%. All right. So that means if we're collecting 3.3 million in that range, then we have to get about a little over 5 million from other sources, and that's sales tax. The more sales tax you generate, property tax burden relief you can then offer, right? And then you have the fines and the fees. The fee structure, as you know, is court fees, franchise fees, gaming revenue, and then we have document fees, permitting fees, all of those things. So collectively, that should equal about that 8.7 million. Okay, that's that first green line, expected revenue from all of our sources, if everything as projected results today. So then you add back in your expected end of the year cash on hand, your fund balance. Okay, and so all that being said, we expect to have that 9.4 million. That's that total expected revenue, just below that million. And then we move into the expenses. And I did this by category of general fund departments. We have the admin and court, the fire department, the police department, public works, parks, and cemetery. Okay. And so those expenditures are 8.65 million. If you take the expected cash on hand, in your, of course, just an easy math, the expected expenses, and the result is at the end of the year, we have cash on hand of about 782,000, which represents 9% of our policy, which should be 15 to 18%. And Mr. Gerber and I agree that should be 30%, but frankly, to be fair, they help. We have a lot of room, but that's going to be a long time to get there. And I think we all agree 1 year doesn't change that, unless you're raising 5 mil or doing something, which we're not going to do, right? As a taxpayer, I don't want you to do that, by the way. So we're at 9%. Now, if things look better, less expenses and more revenue, that number goes up, right? It's based on how much revenue we generate during the year and how much cash on hand, right? And then you take the expenses. Just do the simple math. So what this means and what this budget represents is personnel. There are no additional hires. In fact, we eliminated 4 full-time positions. Okay, first thing we did. We reduced 4 full-time. Our proposal herein is every bit of 1% decrease. We want to match what we did last year. I think that's at least close to a market adjustment of 3% COLA to the scale and a step increase, and our steps are 3% steps. So that matches exactly what we approved last year. It adds longevity pay. We had some discussion amongst the council of how do we retain those 3, 6, and 9 year people, because that's what we do. Statistically, we can go through the turnover, and that's what we're losing, right? So, especially in public safety. But as we all know, we deal with City Hall quite a bit, and we've seen that as well there. So across the board, we would look at a 3% stipend. Okay? This doesn't add to their hourly wage, but it does add to their overall pay for the year of 3%. So 3% of their salary at their 3-year, 6-year, and 9-year. Okay? So someone who has a 3-year anniversary in 2024, we budget it for 2025, and we pay them a 3% stipend. Okay? And say that's on average about $1,600. So they added that in, And we do that for the 3, 6, and you have to have those anniversaries. In the next budget cycle, we add this in. That would be the cost. So that's about 24,000 at these rates right now, the pay that we offer right now, where the folks are that would be eligible for this, that would add about $24,000 to the entire budget. Now, it doesn't include any exempt people and anybody over 9 years, doesn't it? So, and the reasoning behind that is affordability, yeah, but it's not that we don't respect and appreciate the longevity of a 12, 15, 20-year person. They are more likely at the upper end of their scale, right? And we're not, those are not the folks we're losing. We're really trying to target, if we have an incentive program, we want to retain the folks that we invested in these years to keep them to their 9-year, to their 12-year. That's the whole purpose. So the best, I think, that we can offer, affordability-wise, and without just significant changes, we think adding that on as a one-time pay, part of the January payroll, for example, for those 6, 8 people. And on average, if you look at, and that'll cover 3, 6, and 9 years, and that encompasses, when we do it in 2026, it's 5 or 6 people. That's routinely how it's going to be. And hopefully it's more. If it's more, it costs more. But what the hope is, if it's more, that means more people stuck around. You're hitting your 3, you're hitting your 6, you're hitting your 9. So that's the proposal there, about 24,000. A little over that. We have a 0.5-cent sales tax. And you're thinking, well, heck, we haven't voted for that yet. However, we have to account for that money coming in, and we have to account for the transfer. So if you're thinking, what the heck, is that an admin budget is pretty healthy? That comes from the admin budget and gets transferred to the debt. That's the intent, right? We're going to take in the general sales, right? And then we're going to transfer. The other one is set to debt specifically. So it's not on, because this is general fund. Is that clear? Okay. So we have to account for that and in and an out. So it makes the general fund have an expense of $450,000. It's also an income, but it has to be transferred as the expense to the debt because it's not specifically charged or attributed to the debt. Okay. And again, that's where some of that I mentioned in the admin, that 35% increase. We're capturing, our CPA is going to be working, this is not our auditor, this is our CPA, it's on our staff, working probably through this year, if not into next year, on those special assignments with our audit. Our engineering costs, we have a lot of projects. We passed a number of resolutions that are reimbursement resolutions, but with no funding. So we said the engineers can go out and do this project. And when we bond that project, we will pay ourselves back. But there has to be a place to pay for it. And that's the general fund out of admin. So when they go out and they measure, survey, they design a bridge, they do these things. In the sidewalk project, what they call the TA, which is the Town Center Connector Project, 98, Phase 2, any work with application on Phase 3, we'll talk about that. Those kinds of things are being charged out of that account. And staff is relying on the experts to do our design reviews and these other things because they are a city engineer. We have them on retention for that purpose, right? So we tend to focus on running the everyday business. I told you I don't want to be the attorney and I don't want to be the engineer and I don't want to be the planner, right? So that's what we have to focus on. It costs a little more money. Sorry to spend a lot of time on it, but I wanted you to know that's part of that increase. The police department, their entire submission is it's less than 1%. There's no change really to speak of over the previous year. You probably figured it out though, that one employee is about $78,000. So that would be a decrease in that department because we did eliminate one additional position from that was budgeted in 2024 that we would have carried into 2025, if that makes sense. So their 1% is without that and just their operational costs and some of the employment costs, personnel. Parks and the cemetery, 15%. We moved staff from parks to the public works, if you see. So you're seeing them just with a slight, I may have gotten those backwards maybe. the Parks Department should have had well, no, that's right, I'm sorry. The Parks did have a 15% overall increase. Public Works will see a little bit of increase. We did move the staff from Parks into Public Works, but it's still, I think there still shows a little bit of decrease there, isn't it? I think that's right. I'm sorry, I'm questioning myself now that I'm reading it, so.
That's right, Parks had, some increases in programming.
Yes.
And it's also looks like an increase in the salary, which had two increases.
Yeah, so that's about what this all does. So I'm not gonna, now that I've given you the background, the other two moving forward is pretty consistent here. What you'll see changes is from the decrease. Now let's go to 2 mills decrease, and nothing really changes other than, of course, you have less revenue. You have the same amount of expenditures, and now you're down to a fund balance of about 7.7%. So that's with everything conservatively, the sales tax, the fines, all that other, about that 5-point-some million that we can expect to stay consistent. Okay, so these all can change. This is a picture in time, just a snapshot of right now, what we think right now. A year from now, right, we could be having a different conversation, hopefully in the positive, and that's the direction we want to take it. But everything else stays the same. Questions, comments on that particular one?
I just want to make sure I understood the last slide for the police department budget and the fire, and I think we even have when we public works. These are the pulled those potential staffing spots. So when we're saying a 1% increase or a 15% increase, is that on top of the included staffing budget, or were those pulled completely mixed on top of what the budget was without the staff?
The 4 full-time people are not in these numbers. It's not in this budget whatsoever. So operationally, I think the fire department had some equipment and some other things that just pushed that number up. Otherwise, right, they only had funding for half a year this year, so that would have been a bigger jump with 3 full-time for the full year. So 15%, not unusual. That wouldn't be unusual. The 1% is a pretty trim budget, in my opinion. You're going to see that as we move personnel from different departments, because all the maintenance people are in the public works, right? And then they're doing a team effort for the parks and the cemetery to do these other things, and that's working well. But it just shows that the parks is less and the public works is maybe a little more. That's what, okay? Yes. And there's the 2 mil. Nothing changes in the kind of what it includes, what we propose. Again, you're gonna, 1 mil is 113,000, right in there. And so that kind of just shows you that impact pretty quickly. Now, we declared our proposed rate at 39.94. Okay, we haven't had our revenue neutral rate hearing yet. That comes up in September 9th. But if you just look at the 40.94, which is a not to exceed rate that we haven't, that we set, we just moved barely. It's 10.3% with no tax relief. Again, are we better off at this starting point because you move up to nearly 900,000 in cash balance? Okay? The message is different. Certainly, we're going to leave everything the same, and you're still going to be taxed more. And did we really move that significantly? When we could, and there's very possibilities that we could perform this well with the other, collections that we have, the other sources of revenue, and keeping expenditures in check. And that's when I was asked, I think, Mr. Schreiber asked me how confident I was. Somebody asked me, and and that we could manage the budget. Let me be honest with you, the 2 is difficult. The 2 mil decrease, that's a big challenge. We haven't had a 2 mil. You look at that 8-year history, 3/4 to quarter, right? A mil is a pretty good jump for us, but this is the budget, even with the detail that you'll get in the next meeting, we think that we could confidently manage this. Surely, do we want all the money? And yes, but it's not reasonable. We want your priority, I want your priority, citizen, that we're gonna have a decrease. And I think coming in front, saying, we're showing you right away that we're willing to do so, I hope that's where we stay. Staff would say that this is of what we presented. Of course, if we're not going to do the full amount of the same as 2024, the 1 mil decrease is where we are very confident we can do all of these things. My message from last year. No matter how the outcome was, we got everything we wanted. We funded people, we funded the general fund, we predicted a relatively healthy fund balance, you get all of those things. And that's what we're saying here is that picture in time, it may be 782,000. We think it might be better. It's very, very possible. And we can manage this. We can put a budget together that we can adopt on September 9th that includes this $1 million.
We have 5 people going on RFPs, so we get the front of 5.
Well, no, not, I can get you the schedule, but I just recently looked at that, and that there are some, there's 5 or 6 on there that will be rotating off, but these go through 2029. So we have a little bit of time, and you have some that you issued, the city issued, 2019, 2018, right, 2021, so those are 10 years. So you kind of think, we do have those 26, 28, 29, 30, 31, somewhere in there, those are about the time frame. So, and industrial revenue bonds, that means they're on the pilot, they will lose taxes, so it will come on the full tax rolls, I would say in the next 5 to 8 years, that we should really see that. Questions, comments on this? So, go ahead, Mary, looks like you have a question. Comment?
One thing that we had discussed before was the possibility of decreasing expenses, and that's something that I know there's not a whole lot of margin, but might be something, because in the different mill decreases, the one thing that's changed is the fund balance, and it hasn't even, we haven't looked at, okay, is there anywhere to tighten the budget, is the asking our residents to raise the taxes to tighten the budget? And so that's something I think would be helpful for us to have is those department itemized budgets, so we just have an informed, that we're making an informed decision and saying, okay, we're not just approving a number or a mill rate, we're approving a budget. And so that we have all of that information would be helpful.
That will be next, Mayor, next time. You'll have the department budgets. If I might, these department budgets reflect every bit of $40,000 out of the fire department. We've restructured a number of things. It's a 1% reduction in the original proposal for the market adjustment for personnel, payroll, salaries, that sort of thing. That represents every bit of $70,000. So there has been some tweaking to get where we think we're going to offer you a balanced budget, as well as the $1 million decrease and manage that whole thing. So the framework is here. We just need the feedback is, we would prefer not to build budgets that we're never going to adopt, right? So what we're doing here is, we can build budgets around this $1 million increase confidently. Now, you have the right to, of course, authority, decision-making to change that to something else until we get to the budget hearing on the 9th. So when we set the formal R&R hearing, and then we have the budget adoption. So we can frame that up. But what we need to do is, we don't want to spend a lot of time on things that it's wasting your time and our time. So we would like to focus on that if that's acceptable. With some understanding, there may be some other room that you might want to reduce or add or whatever.
Right, and that's kind of what I was getting at, is if there's any margin that we can look at, and it sounds like it's coming our direction, but so that it's not, if we do any sort of additional mill decrease or partial mill, any other decrease, but is there any other room to find that other than just the general fund? One thing that we had talked about last time even was instead of a percentage COLA, a flat percentage COLA. And that could be one area of savings that we might be able to look into, but that's something that you could maybe discuss some options on this moving forward. And then I would just like, and we talked about this, I think, as a council before as well, and when we're seeing the department budgets, that everything's kind of siloed in that department, so that if we're going over budget, it's not pulling to the general fund, so we don't find ourselves in a situation where general funds lower than we realized.
Just so I'm not confusing, the general fund is where all of these admin, the fire department, the PD, the public works, and the parks, cemetery, they all are general fund funds. They literally draw from them. Now, what you might have happen is something happens where the fire department is going to have a bottom line overrun, but the police department may have an under. So the bottom line, all works out. So that may be a case of that. So just so we understand, all of these draw from the general fund.
No, I do understand that, but I think they need separate budgets and to where every department's accountable for a certain amount of money. And then if that department goes over, because I'm not going to be years ago, is multiple departments went over, then the general fund dropped because there weren't those under to offset those. And so I think having even though they're pumping the general fund, I understand that, but having, maybe this is our fire department budget, that includes fire payroll, equipment, vehicles, so police department budget, or payroll, equipment, vehicles, all of the things. It also gives us a tool to be able to compare and know where we're at compared to other communities in our area, making sure we're on par in our staffing and our expenses.
So what I'm holding up here is the administration budget. And every page we flip to is the police department, fire department. That's exactly what you're talking about. That's already done, all of those things. So when we set, for example, when you have the fire department, it's $2.8 million. That's their all-in budget. That includes their personnel, their capital investments, their operation things like the supplies, all of those kinds of things, their overtime, health benefits, all of that is attributed to that money right there. All set out when we have these reports, that's how we track it. It's our duty to then manage these things. So they are separate funds, and they do have an allocation that are separate, and it's our job to hold them accountable for that, and we make that very plain. You know, they've got to manage, if they get $2.8 million, that's their budget, right? There may be circumstances where we have to do some different things, and it does happen. But that's already set up in the system. It's the way it works. This has not changed in my nearly 18 years. This is the same form, the same format. It includes all of those things you talk about. So when we talk about the fire department, they're not just handed 2.8 and they decide how to manage it. It's all in these categories, these line items. So just in case somebody's confused, there's a line item for everything.
And I'm not trying to be fire department. I'm just for example, when a community member comes to me and says, "Hey, I see that there's been money spent on going out to eat," for example, and we're told, "Well, it was approved in the budget." We don't know anything about that budget. Like I don't see that in the line items anywhere. And so it's just things like that. Like we're held accountable to something that we're not privy to, and I understand this in the weeds a little bit, but when we're at a 90% potential general fund, I just think again making sure that all the money is accounted for within certain departments, and then if there's equipment schedules or vehicle schedules that we need to start preparing for, I think it's helpful to us to see those as well. You know, and I know you know it. It's hard for me to look at these and know that we're going to need a new ambulance in a few years. Where do we see that coming down the pipe? We talked about the forecast for expenditures and budgets and things like that. So that would be just helpful.
Yeah, and like the vehicle rotation, that's all in capital improvement plans, right? Capital investment plan, whatever, however we're gonna title this. And Mr. Gerber's gonna be working on that as soon as budget season, so you'll have that. And so that's gonna be a document we'll refer to every year in the budget cycle and say, okay, you have payments on this fire truck. Oh, by the way, we need to buy this public works truck, or that sort of thing. We'll be in this kind of some of that rotation as part of our capital. And so you'll see that. That's not something that's been done. It's not something we have. It's something that said was going to be one of our priorities. Just we have that time to get to it. So, but I get everything that you're saying. We're going to try to give you. We're going to give you the categories of these in the personnel budget. There's 4 or 5 breakdowns, and then what we'll do is we'll have the department head here as well. We'll talk about some of these things. The department head has no control over unemployment. We're given that, right, for example. So it's just the operational costs. But those things are in this budget, just so we know. And we'll show you that next time when we go through those. If that's what you're looking for. That was up there. Right? Okay. And I hope not spending too much time on this, but I need some guidance here. Economic development has been a priority, I think. Again, it's been a year. This has been a topic, this body, staff-wise, in the community. There are 3 members say, are we ever going to do this, that sort of thing? And I think the time is now. I think the first thing you're gonna see is invest in what we have. I said that about parks, I said about roads, tangible. You use that same word that I like to use. Things you can see, feel, touch, whatever it is, right? Those sorts of things. And this is where this starts. If you're talking about property tax relief starts with other sources of revenue. If you want to do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, right? What's that definition, right? So we've been doing that. Quite frankly, I have taken on what the previous administration did. I meet once a month with the Economic Development, why not CEDC, a good partnership. I have no complaints about that. But where are we? How are we further along? And I don't want to belabor this too much. But what I'm asking you to do is let's invest. Let's do something proactive. That's what I'm asking you to do. We have $303,000 in economic development funds. It's a fund that's sat there with, it only gets dwindled down about $15,000 a year because we pay, why not EDCs, $15,000 a year. And they do a lot of work for that money. I give them props for that, I respect that. They're good people, but they have a lot of interest throughout the county, okay? And when we have challenges at every corridor for economic development, there's not a space that doesn't have a challenge of one sort or another. Okay? And so sometimes the low-hanging fruit is easy, and I'm not accusing them of anything, it's just sometimes, or they have people walking through the door that says they want a different spot, and no matter what, they cannot bring them to Edwardsville, okay? So they advocate for a bunch of folks, including Edwardsville, to the best of their ability. But if you want to be proactive, you got to advocate for yourself. You have to have a voice at the table, every table, and you have to have them doing something. But I think the goal is expand our economic diversity by being proactive in business attraction, retention, and expansion. Retention, Standard Motors moving out. Who's going to go in there and who works, right? These things are happening, right? We had Old Dominion, luckily. Right, that's a good building, it's suiting somebody to expand there, but who was advocating on our behalf? Because there was a nervousness there for a while, and I remember it. So that sorts of things, who's out there doing this retention, and who's out there advocating for us? And I think, to the best of their ability, with their time and the number of people they have, why not EDC is a good partner in that, as much as they can. So I think we support a local economic initiative, development, continue our partnership with Why Not EDC. But we need to go pursue an economic development contractor or decide to hire somebody who is an expert in that, one form or another, that specifically works on our behalf. We set the priorities, they help us with that. They devise a specific economic development plan for us so that when they're absent, we still have a plan that somebody else could carry on, such as if we get far enough along and there's time, maybe the administration could do that sort of thing. Or they're so successful and we have some growth, we need them to do it more, which is our goal. So what I'm asking for is a short period of time of investment. That $303,000 is spent $15,000 at a time. I'm asking to spend $75,000. Continue our partnership with Why Not EDC. They have so many resources over the years that we have, and they have our resources, right? The data, the connections. You want to talk to Wendy's, that's who you ask. Who have they been talking to? Who's the contact? That sort of thing. And they partnership with who? Water Springs. They have one of these. And it's been successful. You can't deny it, right? If I drew a map of Edwardsville and where where development is going, it's everywhere else, right? And so this is sustainable without any other changes for about 4 years. I propose a little sustainability, is that we commit to something such as this, contractor to start with, if that's what we want to do. And that we go, kind of like the federal grant system does. It's 100%, then it's 75-25, and then it's 50-50. What we do is we take, if it's 75,000 we're investing a year, we take year 2, it's 75-25. 75% out of this fund and 25% from the general fund, a small transfer. It's minimal, it's a good investment, right? That has minimal impact. And we do that to 50-50 until development starts, right? There's some growth, and in those development agreements, you can have fees and that help support this, right? Because what happens is there's gonna be certain properties will get abatements and things like that. We provide a service 100%, right? And so we need some remuneration for some of those things that we do, and this is one way to do it, is that we then just improve our balance in that by through economic development agreements that then shore that up, and at the same time, small transfers from the general fund, which would be more than a year now that we need to be talking. So I think between now and January 2025, we set up a plan, we go out for requests for qualifications, and we start talking, and we get solidify our partnership that we're gonna bring somebody in. And I told them, so they wouldn't be surprised that I would be talking about this. And it's not the first conversation I've had with YMC about, we wanna locally invest just like Bond. I just keep using the example. And so a strategic plan is one of the actions, right? The strategies, expansion of non-residential tax. How do we do that? Sales tax. How do we get that? Commercial, retail. That's one way to do it, right? And again, there's no more room for the industrial park specifically. Maybe there's other places, but we don't have those folks coming forward yet. We need to go out. So, and then, and provide for employment opportunities. We already have a very varied employment, structure out there, but this, certainly more opportunities that if you know the basis of Edwardsville somewhat, if you live here, you don't work here, if you work here, you don't live here. Statistically, that is absolutely right. So more opportunities, better paying jobs, maybe our people who come to work would then become residents of Edwardsville, right? Then what do you need? You need homes, you need places to live. And so increase wealth. This is an economic development framework. These are fairly common languages in those things, but it surely fits our bill. So I'm advocating that I would like to do this. I think we could be successful in it, but you have to be ready for the. You may see that this person was at social networking events and things like that, and that can pay for them. But that's where you meet people. That's where you go to the conventions and you do these things. So it's not just traditional. They sit behind a desk and they answer a city phone and they do these things. This has to be a network, right? This has to be out with YWC, out in the community and out in the network that they use. So that's somewhat the investment that you would be making. So I think we can manage this very well. I think we do it right. That 60,000 gets us a part-time 3/4 person, I think, fairly easily. We'll certainly test the market, but I think again, it's sustainable for the 40. So the whole purpose of here is we're trying to align this with the budget, and I can wait for some feedback, but I'd sure like to pursue this. So that's my ask today.
I mean, it seems to me like if it's done right, it'll pay for itself really pretty quickly. If we have the right person in that position, it should pay for itself essentially before even it's 50/50. If I'm understanding, the first year, the entirety was come out of the 303.
Right.
Are we working on, I know we're working on, when will we begin the investment strategy? So we're actually getting interest income off of the money that's sitting there that could also help supplement these.
I'll have that. We will absolutely have a full amount for next year, and we anticipate having everything fully invested in the next week or two. A staff member and I actually have 2 meetings tomorrow morning with various financial entities to talk to them about other than all this stuff.
I'm going to expand just very quickly. We'd like a local investment where we can. So we've been doing our due diligence. We've taken a little bit of time. I know it's kind of, hey, let's see if it's going to go. But we want to do it right. There's some benefits to every strategy that we kind of put in place or at least talk about. And there are some things that are obstacles, quite frankly. And so I think we've taken our time with it on purpose. We want to do it. Bear with us.
It's exciting to hear that'll be starting soon
Yes.
to start making money on it. When I see a number like that, I think they're making money,
Yes.
Kind of stuff.
Yes, we do.
But yeah, I mean, I think you already know how I feel about the economic development contract person. I feel like it'll pay for itself and we absolutely need more revenue. And then as that revenue comes in, it's our job to be very intentional with that revenue to make sure that it's indeed lowering the tax burden on our people. But that's the best way to do it.
I'm hearing the go and do, at least request for qualifications. You'll have that before you because of the amount.
I would have to do. I think it's a wonderful investment for us. We have hard seeing businesses go.
Okay. I got it.
Planning
Thank you.
commission's fault.
And questions about budget? I think we have our marching orders to a level that I think you'll be happy with. We'll have some detail in the budgets. will come with those department budgets. We're gonna focus on that 1 mil increase, and then you know where you could move from it.
I have one thing, and I'm noting, I'm sorry, just want to clarify for the public, the position that we just discussed, that does not affect our general fund balance, that's a separate fund entirely.
The Economic Development Fund is a separate fund, it's not even required in the budget. It's not. And so it's monies that's set aside specifically from economic development actions that are taken, some measure of that. And so it is not required, it's not a part of the general fund whatsoever. It is audited, but just because due diligence.
So you said for the first year, the second year, you said you were 25%.
Yeah, 25%, it's a small number that we would just budget, yes.
Just to be clear about that.
Yeah, again, as we go forward, we need a way at some point, if you want to go beyond the 4 years, right, you're gonna run out of money, you're not careful, right? So this is a way to kind of shore that up. And there could be other revenue sources through these development agreements and that sort of thing that we could have directly deposited in there and shoring that up. And then we may not need these other funds, you just don't know. But I think as a caution, right, we're gonna go conservative and say we may be transferring some money from the general fund to that fund to just shore it up.
Well, we did at one point, I don't know if planning zoning board, we did add a percentage of the project, we put into the economic development fund. Is that still happening?
I think this is the source of those funds, yes, it's kind of been stagnant, right? And there's a reason, because we just haven't seen that much in the last 12, 16 months. A lot of activity. Is he good with that? Anything good? Okay, yeah, thank you.
Perfect. Anything else for us this week?
I do have a city manager report, a couple of things that I just need some guidance on. And so, it's gonna be on the slide. Let's see, do I need to exit out of here?
Do you have more slides on this?
They have no more questions, and so we're done. It will just be a repeat of what you've seen, and it'll just. So number 6, Mayor, that's where we're at.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. City manager report, items that have flown to my office this morning, late Friday. 98th Street Phase 3. Okay, this is, from the discussions of Phase 2 that we got really creative. And that's because we were already awarded the money, right? We just need to sign it out. So that's here tonight. So that is somewhat of a redesign. It doesn't need to go through Mark, any of that on Phase 2. Okay, that's what we talked about last time. Phase 3, we're coming up on a deadline. We submitted and said, hey, we're interested in this project. Will you fund it? Does it score well? That's all we've done. And they said, yes, it scores well. Now you need to do this piece of it. So what I'm looking for, they ask is, do you want me to pursue this more? Okay, so I said, we don't need a super highway. Sorry, folks. I've just never been a big fan of just taking property, these grading things, just like I said on Phase 2. How can we be creative? And I think we have a plan here that we can still apply and be qualified. That doesn't mean we'll get funded, but we can still apply in our narrative detail, and then the next phase would be the actual drawings, okay? The renderings of the road. Is that we retool this whole thing, and as you can see in my notes here, we reduced the footprint overall. In Phase 3, that goes clear to K32, right? And what happens there, drive up and down, those houses are right on that road, and we would be taken by that, even in the grade. And it's not something we do on purpose, it's to make the road better, that sort of thing. Number one, how you reduce the excavation and the grading is to lower the miles per hour on that stretch of the road. That's number one. We'll consider a lower speed. It does not drastic, but enough 5 miles an hour in engineering does make a difference, right? So they don't have to take so much out of the hills. They don't have to do side distance and all that. The faster you go, the more level it has to be, right? Okay. So what's been proposed is 12-foot asphalt lanes in each direction, curb and gutters, storm sewers, a new bridge. If you know where Parks family lives, right there, it's right there on where it floods. Right at that bridge. That is technically a bridge. It's big enough to be. It has to be replaced. It has yet 10-year lifespan. In 10 years, City of Edwardsville is going to be doing a bridge project. So that's included in what they're thinking here. And a 10-foot concrete trail on the side. I know we kind of don't want to hear that. Do want to hear it. We have to put it in because STP is about pedestrian mobility. to score well enough to move to the next phase for funding, we need to have this element in there. And that's a better scoring element than the side. And so they will pick the side. We can cross if we need to, but they want to pick the same side, everything on the east, and it just goes straight north to south. Okay? If you're facing north, going out of town, right, it'd be on the right. And the sidewalk, the 5-foot sidewalk, 2 in phase 1 is on, which would be west side. East side, west side. Okay? So we only acquire the right of way as needed. Once again, a policy decision up to 60 feet. That's what we need. And the reason you need 60 feet total from Center Road out is because of utilities. And to make room for the 10-foot trail. Now, they don't like to put utilities on the trail, so we have to have, maybe they shift them to one side or the other, but that a little bit goes to the cost of the project. But they need 65, 70 feet. That is just because we're gonna put, it's not gonna be concrete road, it'll be an asphalt, but it'll still have the curb, gutters, matching trail, a little more narrow. I think you lose 4 feet on either side or something. It makes a difference. I'm gonna show you visually in the next slide what's happening. Go ahead.
From the center, is that 30 feet or 60 feet?
I think it's 30 feet now. Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
It's 30 feet.
Yeah.
That's 60 feet total.
60 foot, instead of, let me go to this next slide, it's visible. Instead of 80 feet, that makes a difference. I mean, it makes a big difference. It's unbelievable. You know, my perspective, layperson, like, okay, what does it matter? It does make a big difference, right? I don't mean to express my personal opinion, but I don't like taking land and taking people's front yards, a sidewalk going near the porch. I don't like that either. So as you see, this is phase 1. This is what that looks like. I point out the gray areas, the 2 gray areas by utility poles. If you look on the right, look how wide that is. Then you have another 5 feet on the other side, and by demonstration, it shows that in 1 or 2 cases, that is kind of the scenario where that blue house is. And so we are trying to avoid that phase 2, and absolutely phase 3 is even worse. So this shows you 14-foot lanes. I'm showing this so you see what we're trying to accomplish in the detail of the narrative, saying we still want to build the road. We still want to be compliant. We want their money, right? We want the grant funds to make this happen so we get the full length of that. But we slow the road down, we shrink up the lanes, that sort of thing, and you can see the impact of how this design looks on phase 1. Okay? Let's go to phase 3 option. 60 to 70 feet is what they would require total lateral. Now, they mean 60 to 70 feet because in some places it will have to be wider. In some places they can fit the 60 foot in. Okay? 10-foot concrete, it's just it's kind of the nature of the beast. You know? Again, what they were thinking in that 80 feet is maybe in the future a turn lane at some point in certain places. I don't think that, maybe not in our lifetime, I don't know, but things can happen. But they were planning for those things, for future builds, right? So we shrunk that down, took some of that concept out of there. And so we're at 12-foot lanes, curb, storm sewers, and there is a hope where sometimes the regulations change on us, that's what the utilities can fit within this. I think there's a high confidence. What we need to, as I think I mentioned to the mayor in the previous conversations, what we need to do, consider is BPU does have a water line replacement project on schedule for that same area. And what happened to us on the 110th, which is called the Riverview Crossroads, is they had the utility easements before we started the project. That's complicated and costly. So it depends on who owns the driveway. So it does complicate it. So we want to time on, if we're going to do this road, we want to time it at or before. So that in a nutshell is it. What we're doing next, should you wish us to do so, is we're going to commission the full narrative to be submitted to Mark, that's the STP, Service Transportation Program, and for federal funds, that's about, the first one you saw, the big road is about 10 million, because it has the bridge. So if it's an 80-20 grant, that kind of shows what kind of money we're going to invest. It won't be near that, but the bridge does add cost. When you shrink everything up, the bridge is probably what costs it. What would you like us to do?
Can you remind me, did you say the muzzle of the straw is going to be on the east side?
It should be east side, yes.
Because I think the closest homes are on the west side, if I'm not, if I'm remembering.
My directive to them was to study that to make sure it has at least an impact. We would have offered a sidewalk, because it's a lot less, right? You know, and we can put that up against the curb as we did in this proposal for phase two. However, they think they could fit the trail and it scores that. So, and that should be on the east side, because that's consistent with phase two and phase one. Silence, feedback, can we go ahead and submit on this to see how we fare? Well, it costs us engineering time, but yes, I mean, but that's minimal. It's not that expensive, but for 10 million, you know, ish, you know, 80, 20.
My concern is that the bridge, we're gonna have to take care of one way or another, and so if we can 80%
In this.
grant toward that, that's beneficial for us.
We do have momentum because it's a continuation project. It's going to be a little different design, but I don't think that scores against us. I know Mr. Ritter has some experience with this type of thing.
No, I mean, I think VHC is doing what they can to minimize impacts, but also score as high as possible. And, you know, you'll do the second time, the second, third time, we'll come back and do something. This is just seeking that happens.
And if you recall, if you try to go through redesign of these projects after you accept the money, their words, bait and switch. It looks, they get a little bit stumbled with us, frustrated, because it looked like they said one thing and they're trying to do another. So we're avoiding it. That's what we're trying to do.
I appreciate that, and having this conversation with council before we get further into it, I think that's the right way to do it.
Good.
And I do appreciate the slugging of the project.
So I think there's at least reasonable input to go do and we'll do that. Oh, well, here's even more good news. Mayor and I saw this. Mayor, the KR, the way this building
Looks like a
is
church.
designed in the darker color is a redesign. She has a great suggestion, but frankly, it's more of a, is that a wood panel look, kind of, rather than a metal, hard metal look? Though it still has a dark contrast with the light. This right now would be the marketing picture, if you will, for our educational component. And this was a deliverable scheduled by Finkel Williams, and they have a couple more things, and they're wrapping up this entire phase. So we're at the beginning. So the end of the beginning, right, is now it's the next phase, which is all educational material and marketing material for you guys to use. All of that stuff. We're communicating with a communication specialist that knows the web pages and all of that stuff. I'm only creative to this much, you know. So it's the most economical version we could get. There are other firms that will recommend it. They're very expensive. So I think we're going to get a good product of this person when we can get it done. Hopefully this week sometime is that they do all the educational, not all, but they're really heavy into the educational material for the unified government to help. So, for example, puberty, they put all this stuff together, they market it, they gather all that information. Pretty good at it, frankly. I would be excited. So this will be one of the feature pictures we've asked to, and we haven't sent that in. So that's my comments on that. Go ahead.
What about one that footprint? What's located here, you know?
As on the property, you mean?
Well, not on the property, what's the building? I mean,
The internal layout?
Yeah, I look at this, I'm like,
Yeah.
confused.
Yeah, and we can do that. They haven't put that into where we could just broadcast it yet, and we need to double check that they're commissioned to do that. Without, so they're out there.
People are gonna ask.
Do what, I'm sorry?
People are gonna ask.
Yeah.
Just look at this, it's like, what's,
We
what
can
is it?
certainly do that.
It looks like a church.
We are gonna need prayers to get that.
I think it's very important for that public engagement piece, so that people know exactly what the financial piece of this is. I think the plan of having that go to vote and then having the sales tax and just being creative financially, so we're not burdening the property taxes is so very important in getting that messaging out. And how we still tax significantly is really important for people to understand the community really have the information, so that they can be informed voting moving forward.
Well, that's the start, and we can certainly add in maybe the internal components, how it might lay out, and we'll see what they can do for us. We should go. I think that's what I have.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
On to council comments. Councilman Nolan, do you have anything else?
Just kind of touch base, I think we talked about earlier, we're talking to investment firms about investing our money, which is sitting in the account with our cash.
Yes, yeah, I think in clarification, you gave us that green line, some time ago. We've been, of course, doing a number of things. We've been working with our financial advisors because they do have, some public investment, a track, if you will, and that's kind of a different person, and we had to have a separate agreement. During that agreement time, we've been exploring other options, more localized options, and we do have idle funds that we can invest in different places. So we're kind of taking a multifaceted strategy, and we may, like I said, there's pros and cons to all of this, and so we're just trying to do it right. And we hope to deliver before the end of the year a full investment, but we're targeting this kind of mid-year. We really wanted to understand our finances too as well. How much idle cash do we really have, right? And how much can we invest, and what do we think that will bring at the end of the year? So can we pledge that we'll have more than 28,000? I'm sure we can.
Just the other thing on that is we're working with our investment, our financial advisor. I'm pretty good at budgeting finance, but I'm not an investment guy, except my own stuff. And they really didn't want to give us advice. And the more I kept talking to them, the more I became uncomfortable with that approach. And I think some of the more localized firms would have that gentler touch and help us better in that regard.
We're not disclosing yet until we have some agreement, but other communities are investing with these folks as well. That he's referring to rather than a financial advisor. So we're just taking a different track out. So it's taking a okay, thank you.
Councilman Bishop?
Yeah, if you have a financial advisor who's not giving you advice, I mean, what you want to hear, she tell us what we got to do and everything like that. We should look somewhere else. But you are, right? Correct? You're looking for somewhere else.
Yes.
All right, good. I just want to thank Mr. Malott for his hard work. K-32 was pretty good, except for the crappy curve. And up on all the exits and everything. Oh, yeah. And we're gonna get a copy of this tonight, right? Did you know?
What would you like, sir?
The budget.
Oh, yes. Can we move again?
Right, I'm good. Thank you.
Councilman Malott?
Why not economic development? You said they're not helping much, but how many projects are they actually present? Well, whatever. How many projects are they actually bringing forth to the city that we don't know about, or that I don't know about?
Well, I didn't say that they were not helpful.
Well,
That's a good partnership, and they do a lot for $15,000. So the projects that they bring forward, on some of the monthly reports, I've sent you kind of a project list, and sometimes on that project list, those are incognito, if you will. They are not allowed to disclose certain things of where those are going, but they're going all over the map. To include, some people approach them weekly about this property, that property, or whatever, and they have no fruition. They go nowhere, right? So they don't even talk to me about them, other than, hey, we had some guy approach us, and that's kind of conversation. But I meet with them monthly. And Mr. Gerber's been joining us as well. And they've been very informative, and it may be that they tell us this project close to Bonner Springs will bring this to Edwardsville, right? They're hopeful of that, those kinds of strategies. Now, they talk to us about anybody who approaches them. And quite frankly, it's been a little bit of time that we've had to sit down with any developer. Now, we did have to sit down with the developer about the Wood End corridor, which is, we refer to it as Mars property. And that project is still in action. It's since our first meeting, they're out doing their thing. There's no more meeting, right? So they have stopped communication, meaningful communication, because nothing has happened on their end to solidify that they're recruiting a coffee shop or they're going to build this big building. They have a proposal. We said, we think this would work. And then they go and do, and they're getting their investments, and they're, who's going to be, where the money's coming from, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of process that goes through. I think that they contact Wendy's, I think that they contact Quick Trip, I think that they do all of the things that you think they should do as much as they possibly can. If they told them 2 weeks ago, no, you gotta wait a little while, because, you know, the time will change and maybe they contact us back. I think they've been really working on our behalf. Now, what you know, I have no idea what you know. I've told you as much as I can, because I know as much as I told you. I meet with them monthly, they're very informative. They talk about the projects that are in our area that may help Edwardsville, but we all know the corridors are difficult. No sewer, okay? A sinkhole, that's bigger than a building. A bond issue, right? We sold bonds right beside 2 pay-as-you-goes, right? So we have to overcome these obstacles. If you think it's hard for us, try to go recruit businesses to come together, right? In addition to the 94 other projects they have with the county. So that's my team. I think they're doing a good job. They're doing what they can. In fact, I just had to communicate with them after 6 o'clock today. So they're doing what they can. I can't tell you about what projects are out there that we don't know about.
I'd like to give a shout out to the Public Works Department on some of the efforts. And I had a pretty good long talk with them the other day, where he bought the cord drill. Say, could you elaborate on that a little bit?
The core drill?
The cord drill and the money that he saved by doing
Yeah, it's less than $1,000 investment, I think. And what we've been doing is we've hired that out, you know, $450, $500, whatever it costs to go core one time, and then, you know, they do 3 or 4 more, it costs $1,500. So we bought one core drill, and we've cored Newton Street, which we thought was gonna be a full depth repair. Very expensive. It does need attention, but now we know for a fact that we can do a 2-inch mill and overlay, 1/10 the cost, right? Something like that. It's not, so it's, the road can be improved, but for less cost. And so those are things, again, invest in what we have. We have a quality public works supervisor, knows roads, knows what he's doing. And that first thing he suggested, if we're doing roads, we need to know what we have. So we know if it's concrete below, like you know, up there in your area, you know, those sorts of things, or if it just has a little bit of asphalt on it, or if it has a bunch. And we need that 6 inches of asphalt so that we can take off the first top 2 layer and put it on for 2.
it. It looks like you could land a plane on Newton from the base of the
Yeah.
building.
Pretty good, yes.
It's like rings on a tree, I think you can count the wood.
Yep.
But I did want to shout out to them, because I think they're just really doing stuff. I wanted to touch on codes. Please. Because there's a lot of overkill for them, and there are other vehicles that are stuff like that. I think that's all I
Is there something you can send us in a note that's helpful to have it in writing? Please, thank you.
Councilman Shriver?
So I was gonna ask about this anyway, it kind of ties in with the conversation tonight. Up our northernmost point on 110th, the house to the west. Whether we wait until that's totally covered in vines. I mean, I had a neighbor ask, well, what is happening with that?
If you recall, we did through condemnation and demolition for that property. Right at the end of that thing, it was foreclosed on. There was supposed to be a property owner transfer. The Compass Commodities, I believe it's those folks. They were kind of the original owners. And yeah, and so we don't know the bank to contact at this point. So we may just start with the owner on file, because it hasn't, for whatever reason, it hasn't changed in the record. So we need to do some more research. Code enforcement has this, and we were going to resurrect. We have to go back through the process again, right? Give them notice, all the things that we have to do. And then as you heard previous the testimony, that it's deteriorated more than the last time you heard about it. So we can certainly do that. If they were paying the property tax, I would have a different argument. Because it is a building that's erected, right? And there's a property tax on it. And so if they were, and it doesn't sound like they were doing that very stuff.
Would that be something, record you're saying it was?
Now, the last report from code enforcement is when they did the record search, the owners, if you will, the contact there said it's been foreclosed on, and we're not the actual owners anymore. But that's what they reviewed.
So I can maybe do it this report. Did a registered deed search? What it sounds like, so I can do court records.
Between code enforcement and planning, they both work together to get that done now. I don't know what it's.
I'm happy to do it.
Yes, oh, please. We can get you the address, I'll email that to you. We'll work on that.
And in a nutshell, the property across the street. Or property,
Yes.
any status on that?
No status. I mean, it's one of those obstacles, once again, that is, pay as you go, a bonded property, pay as you go. Right? So it's the greatest challenge to development that we have, which is in legal, right? We've got the legal system involved, we've got investors involved, we have default on bonds, we have all these things, it's layered. It's what they call burden for sure, as from the somewhat investor developer perspective. So there's not very much I can do.
I also would like to thank Mary Wilson, I believe she left, for coming. She's a great advocate for the city and for things such as the sidewalks. I don't know if I was sure what she was asking about. Is that the little between the neighbors' houses that she was asking about the cut through there?
So the cut through, if you will, we refer to that as the link. Okay, so it's the link from 104th to Williamson Farms. Just think of it that way. That's the link. So if you come out towards the school from the link and you look to the left, there's some dirt there, piles of dirt along 104th. It is 200 linear feet.
She said, something.
Yes, and well, if she stepped that off, was and it's $110 a linear foot. So we're 20 to 25,000 is kind of the engineers, I'll say, estimate to put the sidewalk. So the link, then go north along where all that dirt is now. You drive by there to where the sidewalk starts again. That was the original design. And then it was going to cross the street by crosswalk, just as a kind of a protruding crosswalk on the north end where the north drive of the school is, at the bottom of it. The top of, somewhat the top, the higher up, right from the link, if you will, going west to east across the street, was the original design of the crosswalk. So that's been original. What's happened is we decided, for a number of reasons, I've heard several, that it ran the sidewalk all the way down from, if you will, the south driveway of the school, go north to the other driveway, over the hill, down. They ran the sidewalk that full. That's the intention. And then there's two crosses. Well, engineering didn't build in to tie that together, though there was a drawing and I presumed that was going to happen. So then when I saw the dirt there and I saw this, I said, let me look at these plans and tell me about this, that they had designed it to go on the other side of the street. If you remember my correspondence from just a couple of years ago, I proposed that we fix that. It looks undone. It's going to be that 20, 25, somewhere in that investment. We don't have a change order from them, but I've asked them to put something together. We don't feel that there's any utilities in the way. Somewhere along the line, that design got changed to cross and in the sidewalk where it crossed. And I apologize, I don't know why. I will say the project manager came into that project after we'd already started. So maybe that's the DHC project manager, their project manager assigned that project. And maybe that's where the communication, maybe that they felt was supposed to go on that side, that sort of thing. But if you're amenable to a change order, I've already asked them to propose one, and I think that's probably worthwhile. Because once you come out of Williamson Farms, you cannot go north but on the grass, dirt. It kind of doesn't look completed. So I think we should fix that. We have to build a wall, a retaining wall that's just down at the drain. We have those two houses where we had some complexity in the drain. We'll build a wall there. It's deep enough down. because we had to extend the pipe a little bit to cover, to run the sidewalk over, that it's deep enough down that they strongly recommend a wall. It's gonna be about 8 inches thick, just slightly above the sidewalk, because of just the manner in which that drainage, right, it's runoff, stormwater runoff, so top, it comes over that sidewalk a little too fast now, so that changes. So, that wall will be a part of the change order as well. And then the next piece of that is the drainage, which we've been working diligently to, come to some sort of agreement on the drainage. The city has a stance, and maybe the homeowners have a stance, but certainly, we are gonna take the recommendations of our professionals.
And we can check one thing.
Yes.
Call 811 locate,
Yes.
and they'll tell us if there's any utilities there or not.
Oh, there's utilities, it's already been surveyed.
I know that his city's a mess.
Yes.
I don't know where everybody is. So,
You know, that's the way, but historically, I don't know if our inspections on some of those things were adequate, and now we pay the price. That's why we're doing inspections. Sidewalk wise, I'll finish this. I'm gonna ask for the change order. The crosswalk has a beacon. The sight distance has been well studied, it's visible. When the students are in session, there's a crosswalk guard supplied by the school. It's one of their contributions was the brilliance project. But there's a beacon there there's a button on each side. That thing's gonna fly, you'll see it. It's very visible. We were gonna put one down at the north entrance, say down at the north entrance. But we decided it's not necessary because that's not the primary cost. And if we build that 200 linear feet, that kind of completes that, you can do a loop, if you will, just staying on the west side and going into the coming out. So those who would cross, maybe have an intention to cross that way towards the parking lot maybe. So we didn't think that beacon was necessary. So it's definitely going to be installed, and it's a very bright thing. It's a push button. Kids will enjoy pushing the button on the side. You know, and then and they'll do that when it's in session and there's a crosswalk guard, so it's highly visible. So, sorry that Mary had to leave, but that's something that if someone could get at you. That's definitely designed to be highly visible.
Like we talked about it, a lot of residents, people come up and make comments. She was kind of asking questions, so hopefully maybe she can get a comment.
I don't know if I have an email, but somebody give it to me, or I'll give her an explanation, you see it.
And the budget, thank you so much, because you all put all the numbers together, these requests, and it's a big decision, as we sit up here, but you make it easy for us, so thank you, because I know it's a lot of work from all the departments to get over the thank you, Rick.
No, I will keep it short and on just a couple of updates. We had our Edwardsville mobile pantry last Saturday, and we were able to serve over 650 people, 10,898 pounds of food. It was nice this time. We actually had a patrol officer who wasn't terribly busy, so he came and helped and was able to interact with the community as it came through. So really great community effort there as well. That was really appreciated. Those are the folks that I keep in mind as well as we're getting back to discussion. You know, sometimes that $20 a month might make or break whether they can afford their medication or their groceries, that nothing. So that's so important to me, and that's why I bring up even when we're talking about buildings and things like that. That while we know that are a necessity, I still appreciate the creativeness of finding ways to fund those buildings that are not going to impact the property taxes of our residents, because we know that they're feeling it, and while we're looking to asking our residents to tighten sometimes as the years go on, to get salary increases and programs here in the city, that we're doing the same thing. And so I think staff's doing a great job in looking at those opportunities. Really excited about the investment opportunities, and having somebody prioritizing Edwardsville for economic development is a great step moving forward. Hands up here. That's it for me. Hands up for coming.
I'll send you that. I'll send you an email too with that address. Yeah.
Do you have a mute button? Just kidding.
Sometimes I can't mute one.
Me?
Start one, turn off. That's start